Alright folks, let's just go through an overview of the T5 transmission itself. Here's my input shaft. An easy way to identify that, a couple different things. Right here is where my pilot bearing would be nestled over top of there. You can tell by the shiny finish of that. Over here are the splines. These are the splines that match the splines to the clutch disc. So whenever the clutch disc is moving, my input shaft is turning. So if I follow my input shaft all the way in, right here means that is my input main gear. So my input main gear is always my drive gear 1, is always going to drive my driven gear 1, which is our cluster main gear. This guy right here is my 3/4 synchronizer sleeve. Obviously the hub is in behind it. These two little blue guys right here are our blocker rings. So when I make a shift, sleeve will slide over, locking either my input shaft to my output shaft, giving me a fourth gear ratio, 1:1, or I slide backwards, locking onto my third gear. So this is my third speed gear here, and that will give me a power flow. It will come through my input, from my input main down to my cluster main, down my cluster shaft into my third cluster gear, up into my third speed gear, into my synchronizer sleeve and into the hub, the splines in my hub, and out my output shaft. After my third speed gear, I have my second speed gear, my second cluster gear. Right underneath here, really hard to see, would be my reverse cluster gear. The reverse cluster gear does not come in contact with this. This is my first and second synchronizer, but I also have gears on the outside of them, straight cut gears or spur cut gears. They will be that whining noise that we get when we're driving. They are only connected through this shaft here, which has my idler gear. The idler gear slides into connection. I basically take this guy right here, I move that, which moves my idler gear into location, engaging the cluster shaft, idler gear, into my reverse gear. Through those hubs, through the splines, out the output shaft. This big guy here is my first speed gear. It gets driven by the small little gear on my cluster shaft. So a small gear driving a big gear is going to give me the largest amount of torque. If I slide out here, this is my fifth synchronizer fork, synchronizer sleeve, block rings, everything fun like that. It's the complete reverse of first gear. I now have a big gear driving a little gear. Big gear driving a little gear, which is my fifth fixed gear. It's splined to the shaft, not actually attached to it, fixed to it, splined on. It will give me an increase of speed, but very little torque. After that, I'm going to be driving out the output shaft and down the road to our wheels.